This happened a few years ago during my junior year of college. I lived in a 3-bedroom off-campus apartment with 2 other girls, Hannah and Brooke. Hannah and I hit it off right away. We'd go on grocery runs together, split bottles of wine, vent about classes. Brooke, though. Brooke was always harder to read. She wasn't rude, just quiet. Socially awkward, definitely. The kind of girl who hung around, but never really participated. When we watched movies in the living room, she'd linger in the doorway. She'd smile at our jokes, but rarely say anything. Honestly, we chalked it up to personality differences. Some people are just shy. But over time, I started noticing weird things, like how my laundry would occasionally get moved from the washer to the dryer, even though I knew I hadn't started the dryer yet. Or how I'd come back to my room and find my desk chair slightly turned, or a mug in the sink that I hadn't used. I'd always shrug it off. College apartments get messy. Maybe Hannah borrowed something. Maybe I was just being paranoid. But then Hannah went home for a long weekend, and it was just Brooke and me in the apartment. That Friday night, I was in my room finishing up a paper when I heard a soft knock. I opened the door, and Brooke was standing there with this weird, tense smile. She asked if I wanted to watch a movie. I said sure. Figured maybe she was trying to be friendly. We put on some random rom-com, and at first it was fine. But about halfway through, she paused it and looked at me with this almost giddy expression. She asked, "Do you ever feel like you just know when someone gets you? Like you don't even have to say anything?" I kind of laughed and said, "Yeah, I guess." Then she said, "That's how I feel around you." I smiled politely and turned back to the movie. But I remember feeling really uncomfortable. Her tone wasn't friendly. It was something else. Like she thought we were having a moment that I definitely didn't agree was happening. After that, I started locking my door at night. The next week, Hannah came back, and things mostly went back to normal. But I started keeping an eye on Brooke. Then one night, I came home late from studying and went straight to my room. I was about to plug in my phone when I realized my charger was missing. No big deal. I kept a spare in the kitchen drawer. When I went to get it, I noticed Brooke's door was cracked open, and sitting there, plugged into the outlet near her bed, was my missing charger. I knocked lightly and asked if she'd borrowed it. She jumped up, clearly startled, and quickly unplugged it, handed it back without saying a word. The next day, I brought it up with Hannah. She admitted she'd also noticed a few things off, like her toothbrush feeling wet when she hadn't used it yet. That was the moment we both realized we needed to take this seriously. We decided to go through the apartment, see if there was anything else strange. I didn't expect to find much. But when we opened the hallway closet, which Brooke mostly used, I felt my stomach drop. Inside were dozens of printed photos of me. Sleeping, brushing my hair, eating cereal. Photos taken through my bedroom door, through the bathroom crack, even a few from outside the apartment looking in. And it didn't stop there. In a shoebox under the closet shelf, we found other things, my used tissues, hair from my hairbrush, even an old sock I'd thought I'd lost last semester, all neatly organized and labeled. We called campus police. Brooke was removed from the apartment within the hour. Apparently, she had a long history of obsessive behavior. She never came back, and we never heard from her again. I still think about how close I lived to someone who saw me as a possession, a character in some story she was writing in her head. Now I double lock every door I can, because sometimes the person watching you isn't in the shadows. They're just on the other side of the hallway. This happened when I was in high school. Sophomore year, right after my family moved to a new town. It was the middle of the semester, and I didn't know anyone. I'd transferred in from a much smaller school, and this one felt massive. The hallways were a maze, the friend groups were already locked in, and I mostly kept to myself those first few weeks. Then I met Nathan. He was one of the first people to actually talk to me. He wasn't awkward or pushy, just kind, charming even. He showed me how to get to my classes, introduced me to a few people at lunch, and by the end of the week, we were sitting together every day. He was a junior too, tall and clean-cut, played soccer, and, apparently, had a bit of a reputation for being one of the more eligible guys at school. At first, I thought I was just lucky he noticed me. But after a few weeks, it became clear he was into me. We started texting late at night. He'd walk me to class, sit next to me whenever he could. Eventually, we started dating. And at first, it was perfect. He'd bring me coffee in the mornings, hold my hand in the hallways, even make me playlists. But after about a month, things started to shift. He'd text me constantly. And if I didn't respond fast enough, he'd send things like, "Are you mad?" or "Why are you ignoring me?" If I sat with someone else at lunch, even just a classmate, he'd sulk or get passive-aggressive. Once, I mentioned I was going to the movies with two girls from my math class, and he completely flipped, said they were a bad influence, and that I shouldn't be around people who don't respect our relationship. That's when I realized this wasn't sweet. It was possessive. So I broke up with him. It wasn't a messy breakup. I was polite but firm. Told him I needed space and didn't like how controlling he was becoming. He didn't yell or cry, just kind of nodded and said he understood. That was on a Tuesday. By Thursday, he was dating another girl. Her name was Chloe, and she was a freshman. Super quiet, kind of naive. Everyone said he was just using her to make me jealous, but I didn't care. I was honestly relieved to be out of the relationship. Except that's when things started to get weird. I'd catch him watching me across the cafeteria, just staring. He started showing up in places I knew he didn't have class, outside my chemistry lab, in the parking lot near my locker. One morning, I opened my backpack and found a necklace I'd thrown out months ago. It was from him. I know I didn't put it there. I changed my locker combo, started walking home instead of taking the bus. But it didn't stop. He'd still text me, late at night. Stuff like, "I know you're not happy without me," and "It was never supposed to be like this." I blocked him. He made new numbers. One day after school, I went to the library to finish a project. When I walked outside an hour later, I saw his car idling across the street. I turned and walked the other way, called my mom to come get me. When I glanced back, the car was gone. At that point, I told the school counselor everything. She took it seriously, called my parents, and even reached out to Nathan's family. I guess they had a long talk with him, because things went quiet for a few weeks. He stopped showing up near me, stopped texting. Chloe apparently broke up with him too. I started to relax. Until one night, about a month later, I was home alone. My parents had taken my younger brother to a school concert, and I was upstairs finishing some homework. It was dark out, and I remember hearing the sound of gravel crunching in the driveway. I assumed my parents were back. I looked out the window. It was Nathan. He was standing next to our garage, partially hidden by the hedge, just standing there, staring up at my window. I froze. Then I saw him walk toward the back gate. I immediately locked my bedroom door and ran downstairs to lock the back one. That's when I heard the handle jiggle, soft at first, then harder. He was trying to open it. I called 911, and while I was on the phone, I heard glass shatter. One of the windows in the laundry room. I ran upstairs and locked myself in the bathroom. I heard the door open, heard him walking around, calling my name, calmly, like we were having a normal conversation. "It doesn't have to be like this," he said. "We could be happy again. I know you still care." The dispatcher stayed on the line with me until the police arrived. When they arrested him, he had zip ties in his coat pocket and a printed photo of me from our old Valentine's dance. He told the cops he just wanted to talk, that it was all a misunderstanding. He ended up being charged with breaking and entering and unlawful stalking. I got a restraining order. His parents pulled him out of school and moved him to another district. I still have nightmares about that night, about how close he was, how much worse it could have gone. It taught me something I'll never forget. Some people don't snap when you hurt them. They snap when they realize they don't have control over you anymore. This happened about 5 years ago when I was 34. I lived alone with my dog, Roger, in a quiet suburban neighborhood just outside of Milwaukee. I worked a standard 9 to 5 as an accountant, kept to myself mostly, but I knew all my neighbors well enough to exchange hellos or borrow the occasional tool. It was a simple life, and I liked it that way. The week before Valentine's Day, I started getting letters in my mailbox. No return address, just a red envelope with a heart-shaped sticker. The first one was harmless, generic flattery, some cheesy lines about fate and being watched over by love. I assumed it was a prank and tossed it. Then I got another one. This one was more personal. It referenced my red flannel jacket, said it made me look warm and safe. Again, I tossed it, kind of weirded out. Letter 3 came 2 days later, this time with "Do not throw away," written in red across the front. I opened it. It was angry. It said I was ungrateful, that I was ignoring a gift from the universe, and that other people wouldn't treat love like garbage. I decided to keep that one, just in case. The next day, there was a small cardboard box on my porch. No postage, just a sticky note. For you. No hard feelings. Let's start again. Inside was a pair of limited edition Nike Dunks, Valentine's Day release, probably worth $400 to $500, maybe more. I'm a collector. I've got about 30 pairs boxed up in a spare closet, but I'd never told anyone that, and I sure as hell hadn't posted it anywhere public. Now I was genuinely unnerved. I didn't take the shoes inside. I reboxed them, drove to a resale shop that afternoon, and sold them for cash. Then I installed a camera on my front porch. Nothing fancy, just a motion sensor cam with notifications sent to my phone. The next day, another envelope showed up. "Thanks for accepting my gift. I knew you'd come around." Except I didn't. And now I was done playing along. I stopped opening the letters, but they kept coming, every couple of days. The tone swung wildly. Some were sweet, pleading. Others were furious, like I'd betrayed them somehow. I never saw who left them. I figured it had to be someone close, someone who knew my schedule when I checked the mail, what shoes I liked. But I didn't have proof. Not yet. Then came the photo. One morning, taped to my front door, was a Polaroid of me, taken the night before, standing at my trash bin, envelope in hand, mid-throw. I didn't even remember the flash going off, but there I was, caught in the act, written across the bottom in red Sharpie, "You don't want my love." That's when I called the police. They were surprisingly responsive, took the letters, the photo, even pulled the doorbell cam footage, which frustratingly only showed a shadowy figure wearing a hoodie and face mask. They recommended I stay with a friend or get a hotel for a few nights. I bunked at my brother's house across town. A week went by, then two. No new letters. I started to breathe again. Then, one night around midnight, I got a notification from the porch cam. Movement detected. I checked the app. Someone in a hoodie was crouched by my front door, facing away from the camera, just sitting there. They stayed for 13 minutes. When the cops came, they found a final note stuck to my window. It read, "I was wrong. You're not worth the effort." That was the end of it. I never found out who it was, and part of me is okay with that. Now I have multiple security cameras and built a fence around my front and backyard. This happened during my freshman year of high school. I was 16, lived in a safe suburb, and honestly didn't have much to worry about. I was one of those kids who didn't go to parties, didn't date, didn't post selfies every day. I had a small group of friends and we mostly just hung out after school, made dumb TikToks, that kind of thing. It started on a Thursday. I was in AP English when I got a text from an unknown number. "Cute sweater. Blue really is your color." I looked down. I was wearing a navy blue hoodie. Nothing special, just something I threw on that morning. I assumed it was one of my friends messing around. They did stuff like that all the time. So I just replied, "Who is this?" No answer. I shrugged it off. Probably just a prank. The next day, another text came in during second period. "You walk fast for someone with short legs." Okay. Weird. Still, I figured it had to be someone at school. My friends were probably watching me from a hallway or something and trying to mess with me. So I responded again. "Okay, seriously, who is this? You're not funny." They wrote back immediately, "You'll figure it out. Maybe when you're alone." I remember that text made my stomach turn. It felt different, like it crossed a line from playful to personal. I didn't tell anyone right away. I didn't want to sound paranoid. But I started getting more cautious. I watched over my shoulder when I walked home. I kept my phone on me constantly. I even changed my route from school just in case someone was following me. It didn't help. That weekend, I got another text. "You should close your curtains at night." Attached was a photo, blurry, low light, taken from the street. It showed the second-floor window to my bedroom. My light was on. I was sitting at my desk. You could see the back of my head. I froze. I ran to my window and slammed the curtains shut. Then I ran downstairs and showed my mom. That was the first time she'd heard anything about it. She was furious and terrified. We called the police, filed a report, and I handed over my phone. They said the number was a burner, untraceable, probably a prepaid SIM card. No way to know who it belonged to unless they slipped up. And they didn't. For weeks, the texts kept coming, always vague, always just creepy enough to keep me on edge. "Red backpack today. Looks heavy. You really should stop drinking from the same water fountain every day. Your little brother is funny when he walks." That one made me sick. Because I did have a little brother. He was 8, and yeah, he had this goofy shuffle walk he did. It was something you'd only notice if you'd been watching for a while. That was when things escalated. One night I got home from practice, and on the front step was a small box. No name, no postage. Inside was a folded-up photo, an old print, clearly taken on a phone and printed at a kiosk. It showed me and my brother getting off the school bus. No note, just the picture. That night, my parents installed cameras around the house. I stopped walking to school. I deactivated all my social media accounts. I didn't sleep unless my light was on. I felt like a prisoner in my own home. And worst of all, I still had no idea who was doing this. Then, one day, it stopped. No more texts, no more pictures, no packages. Weeks went by, then a month. Police followed up, but there were no leads, no fingerprints. The cameras never caught anything, just empty streets and passing cars. I never found out who it was. Some days I still wonder if they got bored, or if they're still watching. This happened about 2 years ago, when I was 24 and hitting the gym pretty hard. I used to go every weekday morning before work, same routine every time. Headphones in, warm up on the treadmill, then weights. There was this guy I started noticing around the 3rd week of January. You know how the gym always gets packed with New Year's resolutions? He was one of them. Early 40s maybe, always wore the same gray hoodie and sweatpants, kind of average looking. He never said anything to me, just seemed to be around, constantly. At first I thought it was just a coincidence, but then I noticed he always ended up on the machine right next to me, even if the gym was nearly empty. Leg press, shoulder press, treadmill, it didn't matter. If I moved, 5 minutes later, he'd be there. Still, I tried to brush it off. Maybe he was just a creature of habit like me. Then one Monday, I came into the locker room after my workout and realized my locker had been broken into. Nothing major was missing. My wallet was still there, phone untouched, but my deodorant was gone. And weirdly, so was the sports bra I'd packed a change into. It made my stomach flip, but I told the front desk, filed a report, and that was it. They changed my locker code, said they'd review the cameras. I didn't hear anything after that. A few days later, I came home from work and found a package sitting at my door. No return address. Inside was a new bottle of the exact same deodorant, same brand, same scent. Underneath it, neatly folded, was a matching version of the sports bra that had gone missing. It wasn't mine, but it was the same size. There was a note too, just 5 words. "Sorry I took your things." At this point, I completely freaked out. I called my mom, crying. I didn't even stay in my apartment that night. I crashed at a friend's place. I went back to the gym the next day, only to cancel my membership in person. That's when the front desk manager asked to speak with me privately. She said they finally reviewed the footage. It showed that same guy in the gray hoodie going into the women's locker room, not once, but twice. He had waited until the coast was clear, then used a key card to access the back hall. I asked what they were going to do about it, and she said he'd already been banned. But the worst part? They didn't have any of his real information. Fake name, prepaid debit card. Security footage showed him watching me during every visit. Never lifting, never even really working out. Just watching. I changed gyms, changed my routines, even moved apartments 3 months later. I never saw him again. But to this day, I check over my shoulder in every locker room, and I don't use the same gym twice in a row. I still wonder what would have happened if I'd confronted him. Or worse, if he'd ever followed me home. Thanks for stopping by the channel. We hope you enjoyed these 3 truly terrifying stories. If you want to hear more just like this one, subscribe to our channel and turn notifications on so you can be reminded when we post a new long-form video every Tuesday at 10 a.m. If you have a story you'd like to hear read on the channel, email it to us at officialnightmarenarratives@gmail.com, and you might just hear your story read in a future episode. Thanks again for listening, and stay spooky, friends. We'll catch you in the next one.